All right, per the usual, little man is down for his nap, so cross your fingers he stays asleep this whole time. If not, he'll be joining us, so we'll see what happens. Also, if you hear meowing, I have my Lily girl here. Yuma's asleep in the back bedroom, Quinn's asleep, so whenever there's nobody around, just me, Lily comes out to join me. Also got my afternoon pick-me-up, my protein iced coffee, and I'm using the vegan protein powder from First Form, which is literally the best vegan protein powder ever, and it's the iced oatmeal flavor, which is great in iced coffee. So I'm getting 20 grams of protein plus some caffeine. It's so delicious. So this is a topic I have not talked about yet, and it's a topic that is very important when it comes to infertility, IVF, fertility treatments, just going through all of that, and it is relationships. Now, I think I haven't talked about this like ever before with you guys because it is personal. It is kind of emotional for me. So I'm not really gonna follow like a format for this video. I'm just going to be really honest and transparent with how IVF has changed Josh and I's relationship. And hopefully by me sharing things that Josh and I have gone through in our relationship from the beginning of IVF to the end, maybe that'll help you in your relationship. I don't care how good of a relationship you have with your partner, with your spouse. IVF is really hard for both people, and so it's really hard on the relationship. So it is what it is. Nothing's bad or good. It's just changed our relationship. So I do want to share a little bit with you guys on what that looks like for us. But before I do, welcome for those of you who are brand new, and welcome back for those of you who are returning subscriber. Thank you so much for watching. And just as a reminder, I upload every Sunday morning, 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, all about living healthy, IVF, fertility health. It's great. It's a lot of fun. So like I said, I've never talked about on my YouTube channel, on my Instagram, I've never talked about, period, Josh and I's relationship through IVF. And really it's because it's hard to talk about that. You know, our marriage is private. It's very special to both of us. And so I haven't talked about it for a reason, but I think it's this topic of relationships and infertility and IVF really does need to be talked about because going through all of that is really stressful. And so it's very stressful on the relationship and on the marriage. And because I've never really talked about Josh and I's relationship, I'll give you guys some background information. Some of you might know who have been following a while. I might have mentioned like in an old YouTube video or whatever, but we've been married for a really long time and we've been together for a really long time. So I met Josh in college when I was 19 years old and we started dating pretty much right away when we met. Josh is 3 years older than me. So I think he was like 22 when we first started dating, and the rest is history. I was a junior in college. He was a senior in college. Basically, like I said, from the moment we met, we started dating. We dated for a year. We got engaged. 8 months later, we got married. So it was like very fast. So I got married at 21 years old. 3 weeks after I graduated nursing school, I got married. I don't recommend that, by the way. That was like very stressful. But we both got married super young, and now I am 37. So we've been married almost 16 years, and we've been together for like 18 years, which is pretty mind-boggling. So right after our 14th year of marriage, I had the embryo transfer and it was successful. So we had already been married for 14 years and been together for 16 years when I got pregnant with our first. And I say all that because I think that like the older you are and the longer you've been married, it might be a little more challenging to have your first child after all those years of, you know, being married and being older, because you're like set in your ways. You know, by then like you're older, so you have nicer things and, you know, you like order in your house. And for me, like I'm such a clean freak and type A personality that like, I don't know, Josh and I we were used to being super clean, orderly, have a routine, you know, our date nights and stuff like that. And all of a sudden a kid gets thrown into the mix. So actually I am planning, and please let me know in the comments, I am planning on doing a YouTube video in the near future on how postpartum and having a child has impacted our marriage and our relationship, because that's a whole nother topic in and of itself. But I think the two sort of go hand in hand, going through IVF and infertility and fertility treatments, how that on the relationship impacts the relationship, but then it also impacts like postpartum too. So I'll do a separate video on like postpartum journey and the relationship. We were together a really long time before going through IVF, before going through fertility treatments, and then getting pregnant. But the good thing is with being together a really long time is we both knew each other really, really well before going through IVF. And so I could just look at him and know what he's thinking basically, and like know that something's wrong or something isn't wrong. And same with me, like he could just look at me and know something's wrong. And so that was really helpful. That was really helpful going through IVF. So that's like the good thing about being together a long time before going through fertility treatments, is you know each other really well. So stemming off of that, if your relationship relationship is not great, if it's not really where it should be and you know it, IVF is just going to make it worse. And the reason for that is because IVF, fertility treatments, are very stressful. So if your relationship is not in a good place before starting IVF, it's gonna get worse. Now, I'm not like a marital counselor. I'm not like somebody who's an expert in relationships. So just kind of take this with a grain of salt. But I just know that I've been married a long time, and I know that whatever stressful event comes in my life, it makes my marriage problems worse. And so if you can pinpoint some problems within your marriage, within your relationship that you can correct before starting IVF, do it. I can tell you that going through IVF was the most stressful thing Josh and I have experienced within our marriage. And I think a lot of people who've gone through IVF can say the same thing. And there were certain issues within our marriage I didn't really realize were problems until we started IVF. And it's like, oh, actually, we need to work on our communication. Communication is key, by the way, and I'll get into that in a second. But we really had to be conscientious of how we communicated to each other, and we had to be more effective in our communication with each other, because I was going through stuff, he was going through stuff when it comes to going through IVF. It was just hard. It was hard on our relationship. So when we were going through IVF, I noticed on the days that we weren't really in sync, we weren't communicating very well. I was emotional or sad or hurting, and I didn't communicate very well that to Josh. Like, we started fighting. And honestly, and I'm sure you guys have heard this before, but like, communication is key to any relationship. And just having that in the front of my mind, making sure I communicate all my thoughts, all my feelings, even more so, even though I know like Josh can look at me and read what's going on. Sometimes he can't, especially when you're going through IVF. It's a whole new experience. It's very stressful. And so I really had to make a bigger effort to communicate how I was feeling to him. If I assumed he knew that I was hurting or I was feeling emotional, the assumption kind of flopped, and I would get frustrated, and then we'd start fighting. So on the days that I was really open and I communicated with Josh my feelings and how I was feeling, like, he was so accepting, and those days were really good in our relationship. But the days that I didn't communicate very well, or like I kind of bottled my emotions up, were bad days. So the thing of it is us females have to go through the brunt of it, right? I mean, the guy goes through his own emotions too, but he's not the one giving himself shots. Although I know that the guy a lot of times will give the girl shots, or the other partner will give the girl shots. But in my case, I was giving myself the injections. Either way, he's not the one receiving the injections, I was. And so I had to go through more than he did. I had to go through all the shots. I had to go through all the hormones up and down fluctuating, the weight gain, the bloat, and then of course the egg retrieval surgeries. So I was the one going through the majority of it. And this is where it kind of gets tricky in a relationship, because one person is pulling more of the weight than the other, it seems like. Even though the other one is trying to be supportive, it's still kind of more one-sided. And so I had to really make sure I wasn't frustrated at that. And Josh knew that too. So he was really trying to be supportive. He was very supportive through the whole thing. But you can't help but think like, oh my gosh, I'm doing all this work and like he has it easy. So again, to be really open about your feelings and communicating that to your partner is really important. But another point to this is, Josh and I were talking about this the other night, just going over what I'm going to talk about in this video. And he was saying that it's been very demasculating for him watching me going through the shots and IVF, because he felt like he couldn't say anything negative to me, or he couldn't be honest in his emotions, and he couldn't be honest in what he was thinking because he felt bad for me. So the honesty within our marriage, during the IVF time kind of got hit, because he felt like he couldn't express like fully his thoughts to me and his emotions, because he was afraid of like hurting my feelings, or afraid of like hurting me more, because I was already going through the injections and I was already going through like the egg retrieval surgeries, and he felt like that wasn't fair to me, even though he had every right to communicate his thoughts and feelings. And I didn't really realize this until we were talking about this the other night. And I mean, I don't really know what the solution is to this other than to bring awareness, and hopefully this helps you guys be aware of your partner who's not going through the shots and not going through the egg retrieval surgeries and stuff like that, or the transfer, that he or she is just as important with them being able to express their emotions as you are. And so to treat the IVF process maybe as an equal playing field, that one person isn't like better or going through more than the other, because really both parties are going through a lot with IVF and fertility treatments. It's just different with what each person's going through. So to recognize that within the relationship, that I'm going through a lot, he's going through a lot, and to be just really open and communicating that and not be afraid of hurting each other's feelings. So I have no idea how this feels. I would love to be able to experience this someday. I don't think it's in the cards for me, but so I've heard people telling me, oh, it's just so fun to like try to get pregnant. You know, once you're ready in the relationship, you go off birth control or whatever, and that's when you can have fun, and like it's super special to try to have a baby, you know, so couples stop using protection or birth control or whatever, and then maybe like a month, 2 months, 3 months later, they get pregnant, and oh my gosh, it's so magical. You pee on a stick, you get 2 lines. It's so exciting. It's just like icing on the cake in the relationship. And you know, that's how it should be. And even like, I don't know if you guys are religious, but I grew up religious, I grew up Christian, and even in the Bible says having children is a blessing from the Lord. And it's a blessing in your marriage. You know, going through the IVF process, getting pregnant that way is not magical. It's very medical, it's very scientific. So something that's supposed to be such a magical process then turns into a medical procedure. And I think there's a deeply rooted psychological effect that happens within the relationship when couples go through IVF to get pregnant versus just getting pregnant naturally. And one of the things that Josh and I talked about is, you know, he did not get me pregnant. Science did. Yes, it's his sperm and my egg, but scientists had to put them together and create an embryo for us. And so we didn't just have sex one night and he got me pregnant. So that alone is also demasculating and it's kind of a blow to an ego. Although he told me the other night when we were talking about this, that doesn't really bother him so much. But I think there is an effect on the relationship when, you know, the female doesn't get pregnant naturally by the man. You have to go through science and medical procedures and spend a ton of money and stress and pain to get the baby that other people just get naturally for free. And it's such a magical thing. So I think along those same lines, it's very important not to place blame on anyone. It's very easy to blame each other for going through infertility, having to go through IVF. And, you know, luckily for Josh and I, we both have problems in the infertility realm. But I know a couple couples that it's just the female that is the problem, or it's just the male. And so it's very important not to place blame on anybody. It's easy to, because going through IVF and infertility is very, very hard and very stressful. So when you're going through all those stressors, it's really easy to place blame. But yeah, I think it's very demoralizing to have to get pregnant through science and medical treatments. So I think overall, bottom line, my advice to you guys going through IVF is to just be really open and honest with your partner and always have those lines of communication open. That's really the key, is communication. Make sure you're communicating everything every day to your partner. You know, how you're feeling, if you're having pain, you know, if you're feeling sad, if you're feeling happy. Like, always tell your partner what you're going through, because don't assume that they know, because if you assume that, that's when you start going down with your, you know, relationship, and that's when you start fighting and having issues. So then stemming off of that, if you can pinpoint problems within your relationship before starting IVF and you can solve them before IVF, please solve them, because just going through IVF is so stressful that it can exacerbate those problems. And then if IVF works and you get pregnant, babies make it even worse, because having a baby is as stressful as going through IVF, if not even more. So I want to end on this, on a more positive note. On the flip side, going through IVF with somebody you love and working through all of those challenges and you come out the other side really actually does strengthen your relationship, because it is a huge accomplishment to go through IVF and to make it out on the other end. And then on top of that, if you're successful and have a baby, like, that is such a huge success within your relationship. And now, like, you and your partner have that history with each other, and it's history to be really proud of. And so actually going through all of that can actually strengthen your marriage and relationship. And I hope that it has for Josh and I. I know that it's changed us, because, you know, when we first got married, we weren't gonna have kids right away because we were so young, but we knew we wanted them eventually. And I had no idea I'd have to go through all this, obviously. And so I thought, oh, we're gonna start trying in a few years. It's gonna be great. We'll get pregnant. We'll have kids. Obviously, that didn't happen. But if it had happened that way, it would have been fine. But I think that our relationship definitely would have been different than it is now, having to go through IVF, fertility treatments. And I think our relationship's actually stronger having to have gone through that. And I also think that it makes both Josh and I have a huge appreciation for kids. And I think we would have appreciated having kids if we hadn't gone through IVF. So now as parents, like, we think it's just the most special thing ever because we had to work so hard and we didn't think we'd ever be parents, and so we definitely don't take that aspect for granted. But at the same time, like, you know, being married for a long time, it's hard to have a child after, you know, being married a long time. Not having kids right away does bring a level of challenge just because you're so set in your ways, at least for us. So to end this video, I don't know, Josh sometimes watches my videos, sometimes he doesn't, but Josh, if you're watching this, you are the best husband any girl could ask for. Thank you for being so loving, so supportive, especially through all my emotional episodes and crying, and now especially postpartum. You're truly the best. I could not have done IVF. I could not have done the transfer. I could not have gotten pregnant without your love and just always being there for me. And then through postpartum, I'm very sorry that I didn't pay more attention to our marriage and our relationship, especially those first few months. I was just like so focused on, you know, Quinn and getting through it, and I just, you know, you stuck with me and you were so loving and supportive through the whole thing. And so yeah, thank you. I love you a lot. Also, you guys, Quinn thinks Josh is like the best human ever. Like, I'm basically second string now compared to him. Josh walks in the room and Quinn's whole demeanor lights up. His whole face lights up and he starts squealing and he's so excited to see Josh, and I'm like, what am I, chopped liver? He just thinks Josh is like the funnest, best human being ever, and it's quite funny to watch. All right, I think that'll be it for the video. I hope this helps you guys maybe bring awareness to your relationship and certain things, maybe just to be cognizant of. I hope this video helps. Just bottom line, be in good communication with each other, and the rest kind of all falls into place when it comes to getting through IVF and maintaining your relationship. As always, those of you going through IVF, fertility treatments, your infertility journey, hang in there. It's all worth it in the end. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Give this video a thumbs up if you liked it because it does really help support my channel. I will see you in the next one, and always remember to be kind to yourself.